Paolo, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Stefan, thank you for having me again.
So, we spoke recently and we spoke a lot about a range of things. But today, look, we're going to chat about Lugano and what's going on there. I think it's interesting to see the number of initiatives and things that are all happening in this one city, one town, one area. So, do you want to just tell us a little bit about how some of this got started and got off the ground?
Yeah, as you know, right, we have been, as Bitfinex and Tether, we have been always involved in helping companies, people, and in public administrations into get into Bitcoin. But I feel like most of the efforts that we have always done, or our community has always done, were focused on really huge scale approaches, and that is really hard, right? So if you try to get to maybe a country like France and trying to push them to adopt Bitcoin in a significant way at the big scale, that is almost impossible, right? It takes so much effort, and so it's really difficult to measure the impact of what you are doing. But in a smaller city like Lugano in Switzerland, right, that is, anyway, understand finance really well, understand technology really well. It's a 70,000 inhabitant city, so it's a far more controlled environment. So working directly with administration, we could actually understand the impact that we would have, right? So, in a way, the way I see it is a template. Lugano can be the template on a wider scale approach and adoption. So. I like also to compare what is happening in El Salvador, and so what we are doing as companies in El Salvador with we are doing in Lugano. So two different one country that is also an emerging market developing country, and also and instead on the other side you have a rich Swiss city, right? So two different stories. Let's learn from the two sides of the medal, and then we can tweak, we can tune the educational projects that we have, the integration with commerce, with local shops. So all that is much easier if you have an easy access to the entire territory, right? So if you can walk by every restaurant that is allowing Bitcoin payments, to understand the struggles, to understand what they're what they like, what they don't like, how we can improve the situation. So that is exactly what we do, what is happening in Lugano, and all was possible thanks to like the mayor and his administration are extremely forward looking, right? So they understand technology. There are in Lugano there are 3 universities among 70,000 inhabitants, so it's a lot, right? So it speaks really highly about their interest in education. So we found the perfect place to start with multiple initiatives in parallel, and then from the merchant education, R&D on mining with green energy and so on.
Gotcha. And so, in terms of the website, when I was having a look at some of what's going on with the initiatives, I saw these numbers up there. There's 100 million and 3 million in Swiss francs. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about what that money is for? Who's providing that, and what's it going towards?
Yeah. So when you want to help an ecosystem, it's important to provide a way to bring people into that ecosystem from the outside and grow them from the inside as well,
Hmm.
right? So a similar approach we are having in El Salvador, where as Bitfinex and Tether, we have donated initially 36 Bitcoin, but we are increasing our donations and efforts and expenditure um, during the year, because we believe that it's important to provide the tools from the inside, from the outside to the inside, in order to grow the expertise and the technical knowledge in the city or in the country when it comes to El Salvador. So the two funds are really important. The smaller fund, the 30 million, a Swiss franc fund, is actually being in use now because we have ordered more than 1,000 point of sales that have been already in part distributed to the merchants in the city. So only a few merchants. So we started with a pilot of, now we are around 20 to 30 merchants to test the Lightning Network integration and the Tether integration. The first merchant was actually McDonald's. I think that was a ton of interest on Twitter around that. So I was talking to a guy that is working there, and in one day they peaked to 30 transactions in Bitcoin. So it's not bad, right? Being at the beginning. So we plan to, now that the point of sale has been smoothened out, we plan to expand the offering really quickly to 1,000 merchants, and then go up to 2.5 thousand merchants by the end of 2023. So also the approach that we are having with merchant is quite scientific, right? So it's not like they get a pause and then we forget about them. We give them a pause point of sale, but they have different toolings to tweak the way the payments are handled. So they have a slider that they can choose how much they want to sell or keep in Bitcoin. So it is something that the way we are approaching things is, although I'm a Bitcoin maxi, you could say that, but I think that for merchants is kind of utopic to go to them and say, well, now you have to keep everything that you get in Bitcoin, right? So we wanted to create this educational process and confidence process where they can increase the amount of Bitcoin that they can keep in their wallet, the more they get confident. And quickly on the bigger fund. The bigger fund is actually it didn't start yet, so we are still setting up the fund structure, and the aim is to help startups that want to relocate on the territory. Right, again. So usually when cities do this type of events with this propose or get involved in these type of initiatives, they want to make sure that their seat is not going to be used as a PO box where the company set up but there is no one actually living on the territory, right? So the only reason for the city to do this is, well, one of the few reasons for the city to do it is to make sure that the territory remains vibrant, young, and always ready to follow technology. So it's important that, of course, there is a fund that help people to relocate here to grow their startups. So we really look forward for amazing Bitcoin centric companies being set up in Lugano, and few of them are coming, especially when it comes to the R&D on green energy and mining. There is an interesting company just moving here in Lugano, renting a big place so they can put their machinery, and also teaching to the university, but also taking back from the university in terms of engineering. And there are two really engineering focused on universities in Lugano. So that's why that's what's happening here.
Interesting. And so, for let's say there are listeners out there, maybe they are Bitcoin builders and they're thinking about potentially going to Lugano. What would the process be like for them if they were to? Is it like applying for a grant, or is that the kind of structure that they are looking at here, or what's the approach going to be to try to attract Bitcoin businesses?
So more the grant, we plan to. So we are setting up this fund that will be a classic VC fund, but will be focusing on technologies that we do care about. And I can tell you, probably this is the first time I make it public, but there will be also a hole punch slash tags fund, incubation fund as well, right? So we are creating multiple funds, each one for different technologies, because it's important that there is enough capital to run operations also in the city, so the people are not strangled when they come to live in Switzerland. And but yeah, is Bitcoin, Lightning, and hole punch slash tags, dedicated funds.
Fantastic. So that's really cool to see. And so then, in terms of attracting people, is the idea that the city is going to try and attract people who are not currently in Switzerland? So, like, would they be having to, like, you know, apply for visas and things like this to kind of, to come and work? Because I guess the idea, as you're saying, is they want people to actually come and live in the city and not just sort of remotely set up from the city and still be elsewhere around the world.
Yeah, so, well, Lugano is looking for people relocating from other areas from Switzerland or outside of the world, outside of Switzerland. So, for example, we are seeing an interesting inflow from people living in Zug, right? So, or
Right.
companies actually having PO boxes in Zug and looking at Lugano as a potential new residence for themselves and the city. So actually, we had around 20 people already moving from Zug and Zurich, or from this upper part, northern part of Switzerland into Lugano in the last 6 months. And five companies already established here, and other 20 are looking to relocate here in Lugano. So things actually are moving, especially, of course, there are the funds, but the most important exciting part is the direct connection with the city, right? So anyone can go and set up a meeting with the mayor, with his administration, get his advice, and you really feel part of something here, right? So is again, it is a city that is a smallish city, 70,000 inhabitants. So it's no Dubai, it's no Milan, it's no Rome, it's not Paris, of course, but is a city that you can walk around everywhere. It's a beautiful lake, mountains, and the administration is like the administration understands really well the importance of being on the or jumping on the train now, right? Lugano historically was and is still one of the three biggest cities when it comes to wealth. So there is Zurich, Geneva, and Lugano. So Geneva is a bit more on the French side. There's Zurich is on the German side, and Lugano is on the Italian side. Right, the three languages that are spoken in Switzerland. But until the last decade, Lugano was and Geneva and Zurich were making a killing on banking, and they still do till a certain extent. But I think that recently, Europe, including Switzerland, has become more an even playing field with when it comes to banking. And so a lot of banks consolidated in the entire Switzerland after the 2008 crisis. And so I think that Switzerland is really well suited to be, at the forefront of financial technology innovation, right? And finance in general. So they understand finance really well. They understand money really well, and so they understand that if they are like the 15th country to really show interest to Bitcoin, they will lose a trade. And Switzerland has the Swiss franc. If you don't have dollars, you want dollars. If you have dollars, you want Swiss francs. That's how it goes when it comes to money and in the fiat world. But if you add then the two, you can argue that the two strongest and independent currencies in the world are actually the Swiss franc and Bitcoin, right? So Swiss franc is the monetary policy of Switzerland is extremely more thorough than what we have been seeing in, for example, from the US or Europe, right? So is the central bank of Switzerland has been much more restrictive in what they did during the COVID period and all in these recent times. And also, they have been providing clarity and regulations on Bitcoin and crypto since 2015. So, and this is quite important, right? FINMA, the regulatory body in Switzerland, has been providing clarity, has been providing regulations for cryptocurrencies since a lot of years, 7 years now, right? That when most of the other countries were still picking their noses because they were completely um, still sleeping on this new technology. So that's why I like Switzerland, and they have actually a good chance in attracting a ton of people here. I mean, also I know some friends that are planning to move from Dubai, from Australia. We have people relocating from also Ukraine, and and the city also. The beautiful part of it is that the city is involved in helping actually people relocating. Right, they understand that the main struggles are relocating here. So if you don't have an if you don't have an European passport, takes time, effort to relocate in Switzerland. But the city is helping and helped already many from living abroad to relocate in Lugano. So, and also banking, right? So you want to come here maybe with and open a bank account, and banking. I know that also in Dubai, in Singapore, although they are crypto friendly places, still banking is not that easy, right? So, and Switzerland has a really thorough approach to banking, and yet after the 3rd of March, when we announced the Plan B, we are sitting around the table every few weeks with different banks, and they are starting to onboard crypto people, and that is a huge achievement because now banking understands that they can suddenly start to offer other services like other services to their customers, and that's something that I really like to see because I think that they understand that they shouldn't be superseded by the technology, but they should embrace the technology.
I see. Yeah. And as you mentioned around having people use Bitcoin around town, I think one thing, obviously, Switzerland, people don't really know, but Switzerland has no capital gains tax, from what I understand. Although there is a wealth tax, but still, no capital gains tax means you can spend your Bitcoin if you are Switzerland based. And so that is an interesting idea because people talk about this idea of Bitcoin legal tender, but really if you just remove capital gains tax, then you're okay to spend your Bitcoin without having to do tax events and so on. Now, of course, that may be a different story for tourists and things like this, but in terms of locals or people who are residents of Switzerland, then that's interesting to see, and maybe we will see more adoption from that perspective, just because it eases the friction. So I'm curious from a Bitfinex point of view, are you getting involved there from the merchant side? Like, are the merchants actually using Bitfinex in terms of getting, like, if they want to receive some fiat out of that, or like how does it work for the merchants in Lugano who want to, let's say, take a split in some Bitcoin and some fiat?
Yeah, so at the moment, the merchants are using this point of sale that is provided by GoCrypto, and GoCrypto is using Bitfinex Pay as a backend. So as Bitfinex Pay, we didn't have the full setup also with the physical device, right? So in many places works, so you can go directly with the phone, right? So you have the phone and you show a QR code, and that usually works. But in Switzerland, we have done a thorough investigation at the beginning, right? So, and that is part, to me, if you want to get the entire city to adopt a new system, there are few things you have to do. First of all, it has to be free for them. So that's why we wanted to do the experiment, and the cost of the point of sale are fully covered. The second is that you need to give to the merchants the ability to remain 100% in fiat or move the slider and decide how much remain in Bitcoin. So that is extremely important, right? So these are definitely the most important parts. And then the third one is that, believe it or not, they want the point of sale that prints the receipt, right? So they have all integrated. So they have, the restaurants are pretty busy. So you want your guy going around. We have this point of sale. Boom, show the QR code, pay, receipt printed, connected to their cashier, right? So they don't want to have like 10 systems that don't talk to each other. That is a barrier for integration. And yes, I know that there are many companies that are actually having these smartphone apps that are great, right? But the problem is they are good for the Bitcoin believers already, right? So the ones that they don't care, that's fine. They will export an Excel spreadsheet. They will merge the current cashier system with the Excel spreadsheet, and they are happy. But it's not all like that, right? People need to have one single system. You are talking to old ladies in their grocery store, right? So that is the most important thing to solve.
Okay. So could you just walk us through then, as an example? Let's say you're a Bitcoiner, you want to go there as a tourist, and you want to spend some Bitcoin. What does it look like? Is it basically they ring it up on a register and that prints out a receipt, and that receipt has a QR code, and then that's what you scan and pay, or is it like it's actually on their little credit card terminal? Same thing.
Yeah, it's basically so. What they have is like, okay, so they have this. They have a terminal, a point of sale that is just basically a box that
Yeah.
has a phone inside, as a phone that with like over the air updates and so on, has a printer here, and also has NFC still on the top, right? So basically it's just a phone in a nice box with a printer and the NFC well exposed. So this point of sale can do crypto payments. So can basically, you tap the amount, you say, okay, I want to pay in Bitcoin, I want to pay in Tether, and will basically show the QR code. So you scan it with the code and with your phone, you pay and create the receipt. And also has the support also for some Bitcoin cards that are and LN cards that are coming out now, and also Visa Mastercard. So here's the thing, right? So you can push the merchants now to have one single point of sale that does everything. The Obviously the most critical part for us was limiting the number of currencies that we were offering, because we don't want others. We wanted to limit to just three currencies, like the Lugano stablecoin that is called Luga. There is the Tether and Bitcoin, right? So the biggest, most important currency, Bitcoin, then Tether as a stablecoin, and then Luga. So we really didn't want to spread the focus on like 15 different currencies with almost no usage, right? So it's important to us also that we stick to the narrative that people should use, mainly Bitcoin actually. But yeah, everything is integrated with a cashier, right? So when you pay on and with your phone, the device, so the point of sale that for example the shop owner has, will print the receipt and will directly talk to his cashier, right? The cashier is the thing that has also some cash inside and basically does a little bit of accounting. So at the end of the day, you know how much you earned, and so on and so forth, right? So is all integrated in that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I can understand the point of that because, yeah, as you mentioned, currently it would otherwise take a lot of manual wrangling, or at least some manual accounting, or at least giving it to the accountant and saying, okay, here's the fiat side of it and here's the Bitcoin side of it. Now just you have to do some kind of in the back end Excel matching it together or getting a CSV and stuff like this. So I can certainly see the appeal there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Lugano and checking it out. I think it'll be fantastic to be able to pay in person with Bitcoin. It's always fun. I guess probably the other big question that I think people are going to have is why bother trying to drive adoption from the top down? Why not bottom up only, right? Like I can understand maybe there are libertarians who might have that kind of critique. How would you answer that, or how do you think about that kind of question?
Well, it's not one or the other, right? So we are actually, as Bitfinex and Tether, we are doing both, right? We are creating technologies that everyone can use, and they don't have any control, like Hole Punch and Keat, that will have soon in the next couple of weeks will have support for Lightning, for example. Bottom-up approach is also in El Salvador. We are focusing on bottom-up approach and top-down approach at the same time, right? So it's in the end, it's you need government support if you want to move faster, right? So government has access to a ton of information, like universities that so can improve the speed of adoption. So I think it's quite utopic thinking that you can solve everything from the bottom up, because the reason, the scare that I have, I'm fearful that if we don't move fast, we will let big tech companies trying to steal the lunch from us, right? So I want to be able to move as fast as I can with all the different, at least all the levels I can, in order to drive adoption. Because if you start from the bottom, is the most, I understand that is the most pure approach, but still is, it might be too slow. So I prefer to unify the two things and find, and then we meet in the middle, right? So on one side you prepare like the ground from the top, from the bottom up, so people, the most like um, knowledgeable people will already embrace the technology and start, uh, spreading out. But at the same time, if the government, if the administration of a city is not comfortable, they can put limitations through the entire process. So of course, we are all Bitcoin believers. So we say, okay, whatever limitation we will face, Bitcoin will overcome that. But I think that I really don't like to wait for, or to give the chance of to others, to big tech companies, to shift the narrative and trying to enter in territories that might be open to adopting blockchains, selling a blockchain that is not Bitcoin. So to me, it's important that we do the two things in parallel.
I see. And so I guess the other question people might be having is, what's the situation like in terms of how much power the city of Lugano has? Like, are they in a situation where, let's say, they are impacted by regulations coming in from the outside, like at the federal level in Switzerland, or do they really have enough power, or at the canton level, or do they have enough power to really drive it forward in their own city?
So the beauty of Switzerland is that they have the federal level, cantonal level, and city level, and there is quite some independence between the three of them. So they, of course, had to name Bitcoin Tether and Luga as de facto legal tender, right? So, for example, the law of money is at the federal level, but still they could take independently the choice of accepting Bitcoin payments for the taxes with no limits, and they can basically all the rest they can do it by themselves. So that to me is already a great sign of independence, especially used by I'm used to Italy, right? So where nothing moves ever, and so it's extremely refreshing to see what is happening here in Lugano. And of course, would be nice to have Bitcoin really eventually as full legal tender, but it's already, in my opinion, is already good enough, right? So is working. The city has embraced it fully, so is more than I can ask.
I see. And so, in terms of people who are accepting Bitcoin today, so there's that video, the McDonald's video, which I'll put that in the show notes if I can find that one. Just for people who are listening now and thinking that they're going to visit sometime soon, what kind of merchants could they be paying Bitcoin?
So first of all, the first thing, um, so the city and started from McDonald's, because it's a big achievement. They have a ton of people throughout the day, but also I pushed my preferred restaurant to accept Bitcoin. So of course I'm basically going there 5 times per week. So to me is of course is a no-brainer, and it's called Gabbani. Is an amazing meat restaurant with is Italian cuisine in Switzerland, and it's just insane, right? So I know that I'm doing some advertisement here, but when it comes to food, I'm always super excited. And But also we an art gallery also was onboarded a couple of days ago. A watch dealer, and many other restaurants have been onboarded in the last 34 days. So now we are around 20, but we plan to arrive to 50, 60, all in the center of the city by the event. And after the event, of course, this will continue to 2.5 thousand. So of course, to build we announced the 3rd of March to build the right processes, to build like also the right communication with the merchant. It took a little bit of time, but now that all the technological part is there, is working properly. Apart this morning that Lightning had a small issue, so a couple of merchants were complaining already, but we fixed that pretty quickly, and now we are back on track.
Right, and of course, and I know with these things there are always teething issues, and I know even with El Salvador, some users of the Chivo wallet were having some issues with Lightning, but I think most of those have now been ironed out as well. So I think these kinds of things are to be expected, especially with doing larger scale rollouts of Lightning. It's early days still, but I think a lot of Bitcoin people are excited to have that chance to go out there and truly live on Bitcoin if they can, right? If they can earn Bitcoin and spend Bitcoin and just not have to, or minimize the amount of fiat they have to touch or use, then, all the better, right? Um, so do you want to tell us a little bit about, is there anything else you want to expand on with the students and what they're going to do? Because from what I've read, it sounds like there's going to be some kind of tie-in with a university curriculum also.
Yeah. So there are 3 universities in Lugano, as I said, and all the 3 universities had agreed to work with this Plan B group to design Bitcoin and Lightning Network courses, right? So of the universities are quite technical, so engineering style, and the other one is more business oriented. So we proposed, and we already had a summer school, so 2 weeks where prominent speakers came to Lugano and teach lessons to around 100 students, selected students, coming from everywhere in the world, actually. Um, and now we want to streamline that educational process to curricula courses during the regular year in the university, right? So, of the two more technical universities will focus on coding, of course, development in the Bitcoin and Lightning world. And the more business-oriented university will focus on a bit more on the marketing aspects of it. So how you can, so it's not about only tech, right? So how you can you need to understand how Bitcoin works. If you need to help companies that have adopted Bitcoin to grow, how you do that, how you do the accounting part, how you do the legal side, and so on, right? So there are so many different phases to is like a dice where each phase is a different job type that you can do. So that's the role of the interaction with the universities that we have.
Yeah. And so we touched on this a little bit earlier. You mentioned that there's going to be this fund in terms of Bitcoin startups who are looking to situate in Lugano and have staff there and probably run their Bitcoin business there. It seems from the website there's also going to be some plan for a hub/incubator. So is that going to be like a physical space, or is it going to be more like just in the city that people can come and be setting up their business?
So there is the plan is pretty much done in the sense that we are the final stages of this plan. There is the plan to acquire a 4 stories building where at the entrance we want to have a Bitcoin cafe with Bitcoin art. So with we are working with Satoshi Gallery and hopefully other designers, artists will be added later. But we plan to have a bull inside the, let's say, the base floor where there is this cafe with the art around, and then the other floors will be used for co-working space and recreative space and some offices. So we wanted to create a space for everyone to come, enjoy coming to lectures, because there is a place also for lectures, and so doing meetups and all revolving around Bitcoin. So I feel like a city like Lugano, again, to give comfort, to give also to be the to provide a single point where people can find what is real, what they should learn, and what is not interesting. They should come to a specific place, right? So, as you might know or might imagine, as soon as we launched the Plan B initiative, ton of shitcoiners and everyone started to pile on this initiative, right? So it happened that many projects, without saying anything, started to use the Plan B marketing material to try to sell their product, and that this is something that we want to avoid with all our forces. So that's why we wanted to create a hub where people know that inside that hub we try to provide them uh, real information about Bitcoin and the real thing, right? So that's the reason we're having a hub.
I see, yeah. And I can imagine for people who are in the city and maybe they're not already Bitcoiners, they might just sort of see all these altcoiners descending on the town to try to shill things. But if they can see, let's say there's a community hub there, okay, they teach Bitcoin there. Oh, I can pay Bitcoin to buy my coffee there. Okay, I'm sort of getting the idea here. Like, exactly what is this? What am I meant to do with Bitcoin? So I can imagine that. So let's chat a bit about the forum then. So basically, you are putting on basically a Plan B forum. So what is it?
So the Plan B forum is it will be a recurring initiative, right? Every year we plan to do this, right? So we wanted to have a forum that would unify our vision when it comes to Bitcoin and technology. So I'm big sustainer of big supporter of the individual sovereignty concept, where you have to be financially free and hold your own keys in order to be yourself, to be free. But to me, as I said multiple times, in order to have the full individual sovereignty, you need to have also a freedom of speech tools. For example, Keat and Hole Punch and what Synonym is working on are, to me, the perfect complementary technologies to Bitcoin. But on the freedom of speech, there are not many events related to freedom of speech around the world, right? So, of course, Alex did a great job in Oslo. I was really humbled to be invited, and you were there as well. So that was really good. But we wanted to unify a little bit the industry and the two types of industry in a single place, right? So who is working or who has direct experience on Bitcoin? So we have the most prominent speakers around revolving around Bitcoin, and also prominent speakers when it comes to freedom of speech. And so we're going to have the Assange family, for example, the full family, of course, part Julian. We are going to have also people from law firms explaining and discussing, debating on the code is freedom, right? So what we can expect from future regulations around the code, right? So if you write a piece of code, can someone come after you if that piece of code is used for any malicious activity or whatsoever, right? So what is the type of protection there? So also, we want to start discussing about the importance of privacy in communication systems, right? Right. So we want to explain, now something that is becoming a motto for myself is that to us, cloud is a scam, and how to we are going to see how we can fight the prominent positioning that cloud solutions have in the current world, and how we can create tools that are communications tools, storage tools, and so on, that will fight that dominance. Because when shit hits the fan, you really want to be ready with an alternative set private and enterprise solutions. I believe that also enterprise corporates should be really careful on where they keep their own files and their own data. And usually they trust the third party, but we can demonstrate to them that they don't need to trust any other party, or they don't need to use other people, someone else backup solution, when they can build their own, and do it in a really decentralized way and fully encrypted way, and so on. So there is so much to talk about, and we are going to have also master classes. There is Nick Szabo, Adam Beck, and there is James Lonlop, myself, Matthias Bus. There is John Carvalho, Giacomo Zucco. There is, of course, yourself, and so many. I mean, it's crazy that in 2 days we are fitting so much talent, so much knowledge. So yeah, and I can tell you that will be a huge announcement, because we are also Lugano is is collaborating with El Salvador, so that's we are trying to create this um, more broader environment. So there will be a huge announcement in Lugano. Made from El Salvador, so I'm super excited about that. So it's going if you listen to that announcement, you are going to understand that the Bitcoin world is becoming bigger and bigger, but the distances are becoming smaller and smaller.
That's fantastic to hear. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Obviously, the lineup is incredible. The speakers and the people you've got that you've managed to pull together for this. And I notice you've even got the crypto couple, our friends Carla and Walker. So they'll be there
Yes.
helping host the show, and so that'll be really cool. I noticed as well. You mentioned the anti-cloud comment. I was interested. And I know this is something I believe it's maybe it's kind of pushing back towards the idea of people should just run things bare metal, meaning they should run their own on their own, box in their home and things like this. And we are starting to see a resurgence, I think, because I think what happened is a lot of people went to, let's say, Google Drive, Apple Cloud, Dropbox, and now we are starting to see let's say, the maturation of other alternatives, things like Nextcloud and ways to, run your own stuff. So I think that's interesting to see. And I presume then you're obviously supportive of that, whether that's maybe an individual doing it or a community doing it or a business doing it. I suppose or even a government might need to be concerned about that too, if in terms of where is their data being stored, and could they be doing things in a more self-sovereign way.
Absolutely. I think that given the current geopolitical situation, we cannot take anything for granted, right? So um, as a country, even at the government level, you don't want to have the data of your citizens being stored on a foreign data center, right? So data, and that of course goes for the public administration data, right? So you have like tax reports of every citizen, for example. But also, if you are still a government and you have people going around social media and creating a ton of content, you cannot allow, or storing their private emails, storing everything from their digital private life. It's kind of scary to me that knowing that all this information can be stored on a data center outside of the boundaries of that jurisdiction. The reason is that eventually this data can be weaponized between governments, and that's something that governments should think about seriously, rather than kicking the can down the road. Because when I know that might sound apocalyptic, but that is what Bitcoin is for, is right, preparing for the worst in the economy, but also we should prepare for the worst in communication, in data. Right, data is the new gold. Data is extremely valuable, and so leaving the data uncontrolled to some big companies that first promised to not be evil, and now they can be evil. I think that that should be our priority now that money is almost fixed, right? So, or at least there is a good alternative. Now we need a good alternative for privacy and self resiliency of data.
Yeah. And when it comes to Keat, is there anything, any other progress you can share at this point? Or I know you've probably got announcements and things coming up on that at the actual conference date as well.
So, Kit, we are going to launch before the forum, the Lightning Network integration. So we support Eclair, LND, and C Lightning. So that is going to be super cool. And also, we are going to launch on a new project called the future of the credit system on Lightning style channels. That is going to be an interesting, really interesting discussion and panel with an announcement. But also, we are quite close to launch the mobile version of Kit. So, well, I was able to run it on a Pine phone. In a way, it's kind of cheating because I had just to compile everything for ARM. But also the pure Android and iOS versions are coming well together. So I cannot wait for that because that will give a huge boost to Kit in terms of adoption. We cannot complain; it's going quite well, but more than 100K people have already downloaded it. But we plan to see a huge increase in adoption as soon as mobile will come out.
I see. Yeah, and I know there are Bitcoiners out there who are eagerly waiting for the open sourcing as well. But I think you've mentioned that's coming in December, right?
Yes, so in December we start to roll out open source part of the infrastructure, so that people, for example, the chat, right, that is in Kit, we want to we want to create this module that is like the module chat that is fully open source. Everyone can take it, and you can put it in a game, right? So now you have all these um, online multiplayer games, and you can actually have a chat without infrastructure for once, right? That is something that is extremely valuable. So you can bring down the cost of running games as well, and also with that peer-to-peer Lightning style credit system. Also, you can imagine that gamers can actually start building, like, if you have a game that have gold, iron, and wood and all this type of stuff, you can actually create all this system through the whole package network and move it in them as a credit IU. So more, I don't want to spoiler too much, but it's going to be quite interesting also to see. I like to explore how Lightning. So Lightning to me is not just purely Lightning network, but is a concept, right? It's a protocol. How I can trustlessly create a bound between two people that are going to send ton of transaction to each other.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. I'm excited to see what's happening there. I think it's probably a good spot to wrap up here. So, Paolo, for people who want to find out more, where can they find out more about all of this?
So for Lugano, the Plan B forum, you can go on planb.lugano.ch. In the header, there is Plan B forum, and so if you want to you want to buy some tickets, you can find them there. Or there is Lugano at Lugano Plan B on Twitter, myself at Paolo Ardoino or at Bitfinex or at Tether_TO. And thank you very much, Stephan. You are always so generous with time.
Thank you.